the first handicap of the Cheltenham Festival. Will I get excited about this race every single year? I don't know whether it's because it's the first handicap of the festival or whether it's because I think typically this is one of the easier ones, dare I say, to whittle down the winner. We've had a lot of horses that have won this that have been relatively prominent in the betting, although there's not been the most favourable record for favourites in here. It's a profile-y type race as well. There tends to be lots of boxes to tick. The obvious one just to mention is no Irish winners for however many years, like 40 plus have tried since. And even before, when they did have one before that, it was a long way back as well. So it doesn't mean that they won't get one. Glass half full, people will say they're probably due a winner in this race. But I've had a reasonable record on it, and I've landed on one, Will. And when we talked a little bit before we came on air, and I said that I've got myself into a bit of a state where I can't have a horse beat. This is one of them that I can't have beat in the Ultima Handicap chase. I don't know. I feel like I potentially might want to let you go first, just so you don't, so I know if you've stolen it or not.
No, go ahead.
No, I'm more than happy to get in with this one. So there's a few. There's definitely a few that are on the shortlist, and there always are in the Ultima. Followers of mine will know that I'm happy to bet a few in a race, and especially when it's 10-1 the field in this race, there are a few that be in there. The few that are on the shortlist that I won't waffle about for too much in here is Johnny, who's a big trends ticker for all that he's in abysmal form, but there is a little bit of money behind him as well on the exchange. It is JP McManus in a handicap at Cheltenham, so who knows? Maybe they thought about this from a long time ago. However, he's always been good at the start of the season and very rarely backed it up. I know his bumper run he won and then won the time after, but there was a significant gap in between. So he would tick the boxes, which is why maybe he's a popular horse in this race in the betting. But I kind of like him. Kind of like Lowry's bar a bit as well. Don't like the fact he hasn't been to Cheltenham. Don't like the fact he's now rated 148. Don't like the fact he's missed the Meadowtown and he's running this weekend. So there's a lot of things about him that I think he's got a chance in this typically, but maybe he's a little bit too high in the ratings and he's gone off a little bit. So that'd be another one that was on the short list that, yeah, I'll probably have had a couple of quid and I might still consider near the time. But the one that wins the Ultima, as far as I'm concerned, is the Changing Man for the Tizzards, because this horse has everything that you possibly need from a form perspective to win a big 3-mile handicap chase. And I'll get onto the trendy bits after, just to say that he ticks every box for that, but he ticks every single box in the trends as well. Now, I do like trendy bits and profiles for races. Sometimes they can be a simple way into a race if I've got no form study to go in there, if it's like a lower level of racing. But I do want a horse to have a form chance before I'd even look at the trends. If they tick the boxes, then it's a bonus. And if they don't tick the boxes, well, I just won't talk about the trends for the race. Suit what fits, right? But he's a second season novice, which is a good thing coming in here. And this experience that he's gained is, you can visibly see it through the horse. Now, he's got real good back form as well. He's run at Cheltenham in the Pertemps when he was behind Good Time Johnny. He finished 8th that day, but he's only beaten 5 lengths. He pretty much clattered every hurdle, but he had no respect for him because he is an actual proper built chaser. He's not one of these horses like a Hillcrest that's too big a horse to fiddle over his hurdles. He just is a very solid mould of a chaser. So showed no respect in that Pertemps. They were trying to hold him up. He was really keen. He actually travelled real close to the winner in the closing stages. Was a little bit unlucky short for room, but it was very good form around Cheltenham as far as I'm concerned. Then when they sent him novice chasing, he bumped into Stay Away Faye and Grey Dawn in his first race at Exeter. He split that pair, and of course they're both sort of 160s horses. Now we know how good Grey Dawn is a horse. He ran after and then unseated at Sandown, and it was, I don't want to say a bad unseat because it was like everyone was fine after it, but it was an unseat where he made a mistake. Brendan Powell tried to stay on like you would do, hold around his neck, and it seemed like next time when he went over fences, he was a horse that took that a bit personally, and he made a lot of mistakes at his fences, which is the reason why he ended the season last year without a win over fences. He started to get a little bit better towards the end of the year when they shoved him into handicaps, bumped into a couple of good horses. I think he even slammed Val Dancer at one point that came out and won a Welsh National last year over fences. But they started this year having given him a wind up. They put a tongue tie on him as well. And from the start of the year, Joe Tizzard said that this horse, he really fancies to win a big 3-mile handicap chase. Fell in the Badger Beer, and then it started to feel a little bit like maybe last season's going to repeat itself. Maybe he hasn't learned too much, but he was travelling really well. He jumped beautifully up to then ran again after in Doncaster, where he just found one horse too good, but they were well clear of everything else in 3rd and 4th. I think he had some scope 20 lengths behind him that came out and won a Road of Merrick this season after. But in that race, he didn't seem to be able to be brave enough at the last fence, is probably the best way to put it. He got beat, and then I think people were starting to question his constitution, whether he was maybe dogging it a bit in the finish. Went to Ascot and nearly beat course specialist Victorino, who's come out last weekend and franked the form. He had 300, 3-5, 9 lengths behind, who's again come out and franked the form in the same race with Victorino. But getting like sort of just picked up by that horse. We saw how gutsy he is. I don't think the Changing Man was throwing it away. And then in the Reynoldstown last weekend, I fancied him to do Jinko Blue and Lowry's Bar in that race anyway. He was getting a bit of weight from some of them. And his experience at Ascot and the fact that he is a level above other novices, I think really did show. He slammed Peaky Boy that was in there that's changed yard and probably doesn't stay the trip. And he slammed the other runner that he was entitled to do so. But he was definitely not entitled to do so in the manner that he did. And the handicap has been really kind this season, considering his 4 runs have been 146 RPRs, with one of them being a 145. They've only nudged him up a few times for all those seconds in big handicaps, and he comes in here rated 140. And now I've got no doubt with the back form, especially running in between Stay Away Faye and Grey Dawning, that this horse is easily a 150s horse. And I think his confidence has just been knocked time after time. I used to get it a lot with dogs when I was racing those, that when they won a race, they'd come home and you could tell that they knew that they'd won a race. And I think the same's going to be for the Changing Man. That confidence boosting win at Ascot is going to stand him in great stead for this. He looks progressive anyway because his jumping has been getting better, but I do think the confidence boost is just going to make him probably improve even faster at this juncture. Like I say, he's got the form at Cheltenham, and Tizard's got a bit of previous trying in this race. They did it with, they tried to do it with Oscar Elite a couple of times. First time bumped into Karat for Ambler, so that's hard luck. And then the time after bumped into Karat for Ambler again. But the thing I'll mention about him for the last part of the Changing Man case is that Joe Tizard had just taken over the reins from Colin Tizard at that point. I felt like Colin went a little bit quiet. I felt like he was maybe setting up a few horses so that when he handed the license over to his son, they'd get a few big winners. But he was a slow burner, Joe Tizard, to get his hands on the reins. The start of this year, they're flying. They're like a just over 20% strike rate at the start of 2025. And I know it's a smaller sample size, but they were operating at like a 10% strike rate when Oscar Elite was coming here. I don't think this race looks as deep as some of those previous renewals. And like I said, I think he's got tons in hand. Plus, he ticks every box on the trends bits as well. So I won't bore viewers with all of the trendy bits. That'll be in my written article when I shove the Changing Man down people's throat even more when it comes to the festival. But he's still available at 10-1. There's 5 places up for grabs. I would be fairly confident this horse will go a favourite because he ticks the profile box. Lots of people will get excited about him. Maybe people will want to trade him on because he is Joe Tizard trained, but I think that's a bonus this season. And he just looks every inch the type of horse that will win this race. But I'll have to say that, in my opinion, gamble responsibly. And obviously, I'm not right the whole entire time. He just looks a real strong bet to me, Will. So have I made enough of a case that you don't need to pick any other horse in the race?
He's definitely on the short list, yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. And you make a very strong case, definitely. He's a horse I have a soft spot for as well. I'd quite like those, certainly going into the race at Ascot last weekend, those horses that other people or find reasons to pick holes at, and you can perhaps give a different view on why they've got beat on certain occasions. And he simply has just bumped into some very, very peak form horses on their day in big handicaps. And, you know, back in novice company at Ascot, he duly put that experience to good use, and he'll put that to good use again in the Ultima. You know, novices have a good record in the race. I know he's a second season novice, so he's got the experience. And it's a race, if you look through the entries, you know, like you said, it's not very deep, really. There's plenty that you can put a line through quite quickly on one reason, whether it be track or trip or just general well-being or progressive nature. So, yeah, it's a race that actually, if you look through the market now, it's probably a good time to cherry pick one or two at double figure prices, because I do think there'll be a few that get latched onto, and the Changing Man will definitely be one, I'd imagine. I'll just offer up one other one at a slightly bigger price, and it's an two actually Irish horses that have definitely caught my eye recently in big races over in Ireland. That obviously it'll be dependent on what handicap marks they get next week, but we'll have a rough idea. The first one is Sequestered, who's in here, and he's also in the novices handicap chase on the same day. I imagine it'll be ground related as to which one he goes for, but he does stay 3 miles well. And he's a changed horse this year. He's gone back to, he's been at Cheltenham twice previously over hurdles and not really performed to his best. So you could probably look through his form and think, well, he's not a Cheltenham horse. But I think he's just a reformed character this year over fences. He's just developed, he's strengthened. He's a 7-year-old now. He ran away with a Leopardstown handicap chase at Christmas. And then he ran a cracker in the big 2.5 mile handicap chase at the DRF behind one of the better handicapped horses you'll see all season, Back to Normal for Gavin Cromwell. And Sequestered didn't jump as well as he can do previously, and he went round the inside of the chase course at Leopardstown, and he still kept on galloping through the line. He was back in second in that big field handicap. So he's one to definitely keep half an eye on. And the other one is, looking down, Noel Mead's Affordale Fury, who we've only seen once in the last 500 odd days, to be fair. So absolute ripe candidate for that bounce factor, whatever that is. If it's a thing or not, I don't know. But if it is a thing, this horse could exactly fit that particular category. But he was second to Summer's Jest in a decent old rated chase at Fairyhouse a couple of weeks ago. He's had the 3 chase starts. So he's got an entry in the Bobby Joe at Fairyhouse tomorrow. So that would qualify him, the 4th run. If he comes out of that fine and shows that he hasn't bounced, and dependent on what handicap mark he gets, he was second, if you remember back a couple of seasons ago, in the Albert Bartlett. So he's got good course form. I think ground is probably quite important to him. He'd want it to be on the softer side, but he's definitely a horse that the ability seems to remain there, given what he did when he reappeared. So, and the Ultima is his only entry at the festival as well. So a couple of Irish options there, dependent on a few things, but certainly ones that I'm going to keep an eye on.
Yeah, fair on that one. And I'm very blinkered at the moment with I wouldn't say I completely discriminate against the Irish runners because of the fact that they've got a bad record on there.
They do have a terrible record. You're right.
but it's more from the further out point. I tend to look for the British ones first, but then I will look. There's always a couple of Irish horses that do attract support, and they can fill the frame as well, can't they? Affordale Future, I was looking at him because we'll talk about the Kim Muir later on, but that same adjust run was eye-catching, wasn't it? And he's obviously got, you say about the bounce factor, but they've shoved him in this weekend to get the run to get him in there. He can bounce there, couldn't he? Which means you can forgive him doing pretty much anything at the weekend, and you'd still be able to make a case for him. And he might be the type of horse that is popular on these preview nights in the next couple of weeks. And it takes is the right face at a named bookmaker or a named racing site to mention these horses. And the 33-1 that's currently available about him will be gone.